The persistent pounding surf and heavy, strong winds from Tropical Storm Francis may have reconfigured part of the Texas coastline here. Good morning and welcome to Weather Center. I'm Dave Schwartz. And we take you to an area on the middle of the Texas coast. It's Port O'Connor, Texas. This is a small resort community which is up the coast from Corpus Christi, and this is what it looked like tonight. Driving rain, powerful wind, and of course flooding problems all across the region, not only at the coast but inland. We've had a lot of water sloshing up from the Gulf of Mexico and a lot of surf action. And in the back bays in Texas, there's also been a problem with water just piling up and causing some flooding of low-lying areas. Now the heavy rain has moved inland. That's creating even more flooding. A problem for us in Texas and Louisiana. I am joined here this morning by Meteorology Supervisor Stu Ostro. And Stu, Tropical Storm Francis has been strengthening all night. We're glad it's run out of warm water.
It has run out of warm water, and thus it's run out of fuel to do any further strengthening. The center is on land now, and as a result we expect the winds to gradually wind down, but it is going to take a while for the effects of this storm to stop giving us problems.
Even though the wind has not been a major factor, the winds have been gusting up to 50 and 60 miles an hour. These are the latest data from the National Hurricane Center. They're calling it 65 mile per hour maximum sustained winds. It should be noticed that even though the tropical storm is making its landfall, the center of it, near Port Lavaca and Port O'Connor here in Texas, tropical storm force winds have been felt hundreds of miles up the coast, even toward New Orleans, and now that wind field is expanding to the west as the tropical storm moves west. So wind advisories are in effect for San Antonio and Austin. We've had a lot of rain here too. Rainfall totals excessive, especially in Louisiana and Texas, in some cases approaching 10 inches. Palacios, Texas, 9.6 inches of rain. It's still raining there. Galveston at 8.62, and the rain was coming down at a rate here of 2 to 3 inches per hour. New Orleans on the books with 2 3/4 inches of rain, hundreds of miles away from the tropical storm. For that reason, flash flood watches and flood watches are in effect, not only for the areas that have already been hit by the heavy rain, but here into the Texas Hill Country, as we're anticipating this moisture heading westward, and with it into an area that was devastated by Tropical Storm Charlie just about a month ago. So Stu, it appears as if this tropical storm will continue to move inland and bring some rain to Texas, less of a threat for Louisiana as I guess time goes by.
As time goes by, the rain should concentrate itself perhaps a little more over Texas. The whole stretch of coast there along Texas and even into Louisiana, it will take a little while for those tide levels to really come down and for those waves to subside. Still a pretty long fetch of wind over the water throughout the day Friday, maybe even into Friday night or early Saturday. So small craft remain in port unless you really have to go out there, and anybody who might be tempted to frolic in the waves should be aware that they're going to be very dangerous here for a little while to come.
Very good point. Let's have a look at what this is doing to the Houston and Galveston metropolitan area. This is current Doppler radar.
And we see the center of circulation, we believe, surrounded by this edge of the rain echoes, so it does look like it has come onshore. But as you mentioned, still well away from the center of circulation. We have these squalls coming in, as has been the case for a couple of days. Some more headed toward Galveston, maybe not looking quite as ferocious as the earlier ones, but still no doubt the winds are going to be strong and brief heavy rains as they come in. The onshore flow continuing the tidal flooding problems, and then we have all the copious rains which have fallen, continue to fall, and continue to spread a little farther inland as the night wears on.
Tornadoes a possibility. We've seen some in Louisiana, and now for southern Harris County here in Texas, a tornado warning is in effect till 2:35 Central Daylight Time, and you'll notice that these elements are moving toward the northwest at 30 miles per hour, and there's not much lightning with these either, so it's really hard to tell when a severe thunderstorm is heading your way in a situation like this.
There has been a little bit of lightning at times, but outside of the lightning, it is dark out. These move in very quickly, and it is tough to tell whether a tornado might actually potentially be affecting you, but fortunately most folks won't have to deal with that. Enough other problems to deal with though.
Right. the tropical storm warnings still are in effect for the Louisiana and Texas coastlines, and that should continue through early morning. I'd imagine at least through 4 o'clock here Central Time. Down here, the winds have been northwesterly offshore, so we're not piling water up here, and they're much lighter. So undoubtedly, tropical storm warnings will be lifted for Mexico, but perhaps not here in Texas and Louisiana. Now, one big question is, where is the tropical storm and moisture thereof going to move, say, on Friday and Friday night?
We'd like to see it just be whisked away and not be a problem anymore, but the main steering flow in the atmosphere is around like that, around a big ridge of high pressure. Now, some of that flow is coming around underneath, and that had enough oomph to get the center of circulation on shore. However, we don't think it will have enough oomph to get rid of this moisture very quickly. So as this heads west or west-northwest, we still expect locally heavy rains to continue at least through Friday, perhaps even beyond that.
So Tropical Storm Francis, it's been sitting out there for a couple of days. The center's moving on shore. Better weather near the coast than in Louisiana, generally speaking, but worse weather out toward Houston, San Antonio, and inland into Texas as the moisture drifts toward the west.
Winding down along the coast, albeit slowly, but then shifting to other places.
Great. Very useful information. Thanks so much, Stu. We appreciate it. We continue our vigil here tonight, keeping an eye on Tropical Storm Francis. Fortunately, it doesn't have an eye. It's not a hurricane, but it's been causing a lot of woe for plenty of folks in Texas and Louisiana. But conditions will improve generally from east to west over the next 24 hours. Hey, check us out on our website, weather.com. Whenever you're away from your television and you need the latest weather information, the Weather Channel is the place to come, on TV or on your computer. Well, we turn it back to the studio now. There's more weather in the United States, and of course, Friday's forecast is key. Here's Warren Madden.
That's right, Dave. As we head into a Friday, last day of your shortened work week, we check our radar real quick. And aside from what Dave and Stu were telling you about with the rain from Tropical Storm Francis, not too much going on. A few showers here into the Great Lakes, specifically Lake Superior, heading down into the UP of Michigan, and some showers and storms working their way across eastern Montana and primarily North Dakota, and a few showers also into Utah and Colorado. Current temperatures looking like this, cooling down up and down the east coast all the way into the southeast, dropping into the 50s in many cases. It's actually warmer now in the northern plains than it is in many areas in the southeast. As we go into the forecast, that'll be the situation right on through Friday morning. And in fact, we'll see temperatures dropping into the 40s, even in toward Knoxville and Gatlinburg. So if you're vacationing in Gatlinburg here the week after Labor Day, you might wake up to a bit of a chill in the air.
Well, the center of Tropical Storm Francis made landfall overnight, but parts of the Gulf Coast are still dealing with heavy rain and pounding surf. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on Weather Center. I'm Vivian Brown. For the latest on Tropical Storm Francis, let's join Bruce Edwards in the Forecast Center. Good morning, Bruce.
Good morning, Vivian, and good morning, everyone. Indeed, our tropical storm strengthened through the evening hours to a very strong tropical storm, and Francis began to move towards the coast and moved inland early this morning, right near Port O'Connor, Texas. There's a satellite picture, and again, it made landfall right about in this location here. It continues to move off towards the northwest and moving over land. Now, here's the latest observation from the National Hurricane Center at 4 a.m. Central, 5 a.m. Eastern Time. Francis was centered at 28.5 north, 97.5 west, right near Refugio, Texas. And again, it made landfall at about 6 Zulu time this morning at around Port O'Connor, Texas. Top sustained winds now 45. They had maximum sustained winds about 65 when it made landfall. So it continues to decrease in intensity. And it's moving. That is the good news here. It is moving northwest at 13 at a fairly brisk pace, which is good, although it's anticipated to slow down as it moves further and further inland. But the quicker it moves, the lesser a chance of flooding, which is good news indeed. But again, it's supposed to slow down a little bit over the next 12 to 24 hours. Central pressure has now risen to 992 millibars, up 2 millibars from the last report. Now, there are still tropical storm warnings out from Baffin Bay to Morgan City, Louisiana. All the warnings south of Baffin Bay, including Corpus Christi and Brownsville and the Mexican coast, have been dropped. So once again, all those warnings are dropped south of Baffin Bay. But I tell you, the entire coast of Texas, especially the upper coast, just hammered with heavy heavy squally weather over the last 12 to 24 hours, and Port O'Connor no exception. And again, you can see as France is just punishing the coast as it continues to slam on shore with some gusty winds, but winds haven't been the problem as far as intensity is concerned. It's been the heavy rain and the winds coming off the Gulf, pushing the Gulf inland and keeping that water level high. Coastal flooding continues to be a big problem here. As a matter of fact, a report from one of the engineers on the Texas coast says that the water levels and coastal erosion will be worse than Alicia back in 1983, and it could possibly be the worst coastal flooding and erosion since Carla. That was back in 1961. That's really the biggest headache with this system, is the rain and the flooding. Flash flood watches all of southern Texas, eastern Texas, as well as southern Louisiana and extreme southern portions of Mississippi. A look at some of the rainfall totals, and you can see Palacios, Texas. Again, these are as of 2 a.m. Central Time. Now, we're up in the process of updating these, and you can add perhaps a little more to Palacios, Texas, but they should be out of the heavy stuff. But Galveston, 8.62 inches of rain. Victoria, over 3.5. Houston, 3. But it could be well up over 5 inches with some heavy bands coming through. Corpus Christi, not too much of an increase expected here as you get on the south side of the storm. In New Orleans, about 2 2/3. That level will rise as well. You can see with the satellite picture, once again, with the system moving on shore here and the circulation around it coming inland, but again, the canopy of clouds encompassing the entire Gulf coastal region. And it's really until you get into this area here, these clouds are just the high to mid-level clouds. Here's a look at the regional radar, and you can see the echoes making it as far north as, say, Shreveport and the Arkansas border, but the real substantial rainfall continues to be with this band right here that continues to hammer in from the Gulf of Mexico. It has prompted tornado warnings in effect for Galveston County, just about set to, well, it will expire at 4:35 Central Time, but radar indicated a tornadic thunderstorm 13 miles southeast of Kemah. It was moving northwest at 40 miles an hour, Kemah, in the path of this storm. But again, intense wind and intense rain, Galveston, Houston, Port Arthur area. This whole swath here is the one that's really the heaviest rain. As you notice with Palacios and Victoria, you're getting some drier air punching in here, but this is the big feed of moisture in, and that's where the rain will be the heaviest. But you can see the rain's moving in towards Waco, Texas to the north, Lufkin, Texas catching the rain, and a little drier air moving in towards Lake Charles at the present time. Here's a look at the radar out of New Orleans, Louisiana. There's been some heavy rain along the mouth of the Mississippi River here. Around Lafayette and Abbeville and Vermilion Bay, it's easing up, but you see another new batch, and this one will continue to work its way on shore. So the coastal sections will continue to get hammered with some heavy rains once again. As we mentioned, the winds have not been that big a deal with this system so far, but we're seeing a gust here around Port O'Connor of about 40 miles an hour, but widespread winds running between 20 and 30 miles an hour to be felt from Louisiana through much of central and eastern Texas. So once again, Francis has come on shore, but eastern parts of Texas flooded out. This could be some of the worst flooding in years in Texas, and the heavy rains will still continue throughout much of the day today. We'll continue with updates on Francis and the situation in Texas and Louisiana, but you can check us out anytime you like on the internet at weather.com. And right now, let's check on the rest of the nation's weather, looking much better on this Friday, and here's Vivian with all the details.
Well, thanks, Bruce. And this edition of Weather Center is sponsored by Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse. North of the Gulf Coast and north of all of the heavy rain and windy conditions associated with Francis, we have high pressure, and high pressure responsible for sinking air. And once again today we're talking about widespread sunshine, clear skies we wake up to this morning from the mid-Atlantic back across the upper Mississippi Valley, the Northeast. Looking at some current weather observations out of Utica, New York. Visibilities upwards some 40 miles or so. So definitely looking good this morning across a good part of the Northeast. All compliments of high pressure building in. Temperatures this morning in the 50s for a good part of the Northeast, and some scattered 40s here and there. 46 in Elmira this morning. We wake up to 52 in the Capital District of Albany. Boston 57, 62 currently New York, and sunny conditions again expected across the Northeast, the big cities today, from Boston to New York down to D.C. We have much warmer air back across the northern plains here. Temperatures already in the 70s from Fargo, North Dakota to Rapid City, South Dakota. It's 70 degrees in Minot. You know what we have here? A southerly wind flow on the backside of our high pressure as it continues to move off to the east. So behind it, we have noticed the flow of moisture from the south. Again, warmer, more humid air here. And with that in mind, we have a surface cold front approaching too. Scattered showers we've had this morning. Bismarck, North Dakota reporting thunder showers. This is all pushing off toward the northeast. Eventually, it could push into the western parts of Minnesota, but Minneapolis, we think you'll be dry for most of the day. We'll continue to watch the area as we go through the day. So scattered rain showers and thunder showers here, and we've seen some moisture increasing across the southwest to the Intermountain region here, and localized heavy amounts can fall, but definitely the heaviest rain will be on the western Gulf coastal regions from Texas into Louisiana from Tropical Storm Francis. Here's the big picture the way it stands right now. A complete look at the forecast coming up in a moment, and of course we'll detail the highways and byways for you on TravelWise coming up shortly after your local forecast.
Well, let's take a look at the tropics once again. We're going to take a look at what's happening with Tropical Storm Francis. The latest advisory is at 4 o'clock Central Daylight Time. It has made landfall. It did shortly after midnight Central Daylight Time. The current position, 28.5 degrees north, 97.5 degrees west. Top sustained winds are now down to 45 miles per hour, still lashing much of the Texas and Louisiana coastline with some tropical storm force winds and very heavy squally winds and rains. It is moving northwest at 13 miles per hour. If that speed continues, it's going to be some pretty good news because it would be a little bit slower. It could really dump a lot of rainfall. It's going to dump a lot of rainfall in some areas anyway, but it could even be worse. Some of the worst flooding right now reported in southeastern Texas since 1961. And the estimated pressure is at 992 millibars. Coming on up, we have a slowly but surely weakening tropical storm at the present time. The latest advisories, we have tropical storm warnings right now from Baffin Bay, Texas to Morgan City, Louisiana, and flood watches are currently in effect for much of South Texas, and this is one of the reasons why. Take a look at the rainfall amounts which have come into the picture, and again, if we can roll this along, there we go, Palacios, Texas, as of 2 o'clock this morning, Central Daylight Time, almost 10 inches of rainfall. Galveston, almost 8.5. Take a look at Houston. About 5 inches of rainfall now and still counting. New Orleans approaching 3 inches. Here's the latest satellite picture. You can see the enhancement a few hours back. We saw a lot of deep reds. That's the heavy thunderstorms and the very heavy rain that was coming down and still is. Slow moving on towards the west-northwest, and that's going to drop some more heavy amounts of rainfall. Look at the feeder band still beginning to move northwestward now across Houston and also Galveston Bay and also over towards Belmont, right around Beaumont, Texas, getting over towards College Station and points to the west around San Antonio. Looking at that heavy rainfall coming into the picture right now. The larger view will show you what's happening. We're looking at some breaks right now and some of the very heavy rainfall south of Houston along the Texas coastline. Looks like some of the worst of the weather right now just to the west, northwest of the center of circulation, which is right in through here. Again, you can see some of the heaviest of the rainfall, San Antonio to Austin, and still some big-time squalls along Houston. Let's take you farther eastbound because there have been some problems too around New Orleans, heavy rainfall overnight, and also some squally weather. Again, we see that still occurring from around Mobile, getting back towards New Orleans. It looks like there's going to be a little break in the action around Lake Charles, but more rain to come as the morning progresses. Let's show you what's happening with the big view right now. The entire Atlantic Basin from the Gulf of Mexico, where we are dealing with Francis, right through the Caribbean and also over towards the coast of Africa. And we'll pinpoint a couple of areas for you. Number one is going to be the Gulf of Mexico and the Western Caribbean. Again, we were looking at a weak wave, a tropical wave right in through here. Lost a lot of its convection right there during the last 12 to 18 hours. But this is something we're going to have to deal with perhaps a few days down the road. We'll keep our eyes on this one as it is still progged to move its way on towards the west and maybe west-northwestward in time. Could it become a depression or maybe another tropical storm? Way too early to speculate, but this is the time of the year where we have to watch out for these tropical waves in the Western Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Farther eastbound, we'll show you what else is happening again. Looking at the islands, clear sailing in through here, looking at a few more clusters of showers and storms. And again, it looks like the biggest one right here is about midway across the Atlantic Ocean right now. And we can spot that one for you at the present time right in through this particular region. But again, we could also see another tropical wave southwest of the Cape Verde Islands. Again, a little bit of a circulation center with this system. Again, we'll have to keep our eyes on this one as the time goes on. Tropical depression Javier, well, it's been downgraded again to a tropical depression. The 2 o'clock advisory Pacific Daylight Time, 20.3 degrees north, 109.5 degrees west, or about 180 miles south of Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, on the tip of the Baja. Top sustained winds 30 miles per hour, nearly stationary. This system is expected to dissipate within the next day or so. Not much left as far as convection with this system. A little bit right in through there trying to refire, but overall not a big deal as of this time. I'll show you what's happening throughout the rest of the country at the present hour. High pressure still covers much of the eastern part of the country. This is our wet system, tropical storm Francis again moving into Texas, causing a lot of heavy rainfall there. Maybe a few isolated tornadoes as well. We've seen some tornado warnings already this morning and also late last night as it made landfall. Again, looking at the progs, we can show you the forecast weather maps. A slow-moving system, but it looks like Francis will slowly dissipate during the next couple of days.
Tropical Storm Francis moves farther inland, bringing the threat of flooding to some areas. An update on the storm's development and potential path next on Weather Center.
Legend has it that in 1875, John Rich of Woolwich introduced the buffalo plaid shirt, a name inspired by its creator's love for the big burly animal.